So I'm moderating this session right now. I've got an awesome group of panelists. I'm going to have them all introduce themselves in 1 second, but we're going to be talking about game changing and disrupting the status quo. There's a lot of things that we do from day to day that we're just doing because we've always done them. And these group up here, this awesome group of folks they're really representing how they are doing things differently in their industry, in their job, in their space, and how their companies, their larger organizations are changing it up, shaking things up, those traditional ways. And so we're gonna talk a little bit through those, through their lens, and then think about how we can apply it to the advancement world and what we're doing today. So start thinking of questions. We'll definitely get to those at the end. But we'll get going with the great, awesome group that's up here while you get my iPad going. It's my tech support. All right, cool. So let's start off over here first with Justin from Drizly. Super excited to have him. We're first going to play a video just about what Drizly is, and then we'll have you talk a little bit more. So I think we're good on the video front.
You can't order class. Or 5 p.m. Can't order a win. But you can order Drizly. Say hello to Drizly, the new app where the drinks come to you. Beer, wine, and liquor from local stores to your door. Because when life calls for a party, you should focus on that and let Drizly do the rest. Download the app today.
So that is Drizly. So first of all, thanks for having me. My name is Justin Robinson, one of the co-founders of Drizly. So we are the easiest and best way to buy beer, wine, and spirits. So you're going to come onto Drizly.com, download our apps, put in your delivery address, and you're going to be shopping across all the local liquor stores that service your area. You're going to pick out your favorite beer, wine, and spirits. You're going to check out, and that local liquor store or set of local liquor stores are going to deliver that product to your door in less than an hour. If you want that, you can have product shipped to your door, etc. So e-commerce for beer, wine, and spirits in the best way, easiest way to buy alcohol.
Cool.
And that's what Drizly is.
Great. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Next is Emily Mullins here from Reebok. We also have a quick video from her that we'll show before we have her speak.
This isn't a video about a company who just makes and sells things. It's a story about a group of dedicated humans who believe in something deeper. For the people who work here, Reebok is not just a state-of-the-art building, a desk, or a job. It's a calling, a way of life, a community rich with its own culture and heritage. Each day, we're not only challenged with the business of designing and innovating the world's best fitness products, we're dead set on being the fittest company on earth. We're taking on challenges that many would call crazy, but it's all for a purpose. To inspire people everywhere to be better humans, physically, mentally, and socially. We are the humans of Reebok. And this is the home of fitness.
There we go. So tell us, Emily, a little bit about what you do, who you are.
So, is my mic up?
Yeah, you're good.
So thank you everyone for being here. Courtney and the EverTrue team, thank you so much for putting this all together. My name is Emily Mullins, and I manage Reebok's digital business development team. So hopefully this group is familiar with Reebok. We make sneakers.
You're modeling some here.
Yes, here. And most recently, we've really switched from being particularly focused on sports to fitness. And I think you saw in that video that we're not necessarily trying to be the biggest and the largest sportswear company in the world, but we want to be the best fitness apparel and footwear company, and we really made that change after Adidas bought us about 10 years ago, and we've been going through this evolution and evolution of change over the past couple of years. So excited to tell you guys more about that.
Cool, awesome. Tina Vaz here from the Guggenheim Museum, representing our nonprofit angle on this. So tell us a little bit more about your role at the Guggenheim, and I think I've got a pretty picture. Oh wait, sorry, I'm gonna talk about that in a second. Never mind, I don't have a pretty picture for you, so. You talk first.
Sure.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here, and thanks for having me. My name is Tina Vaz. I am the Deputy Director of Global Communications for the Solomon R. Guggenheim Foundation. Many of you are probably familiar with the Guggenheim Museum in New York, but the foundation also includes the Peggy Guggenheim Collection in Venice, the Guggenheim Museum Bilbao in Spain, and Guggenheim Abu Dhabi, which is in development but not yet in construction. So I oversee PR, media, marketing, social media, and communications for the foundation with a primary focus on the museum in New York. And one of the things that I think sets the Guggenheim apart is our global footprint and the way we engage around the world. So that's something we'll talk a little bit more about.
That's great. And then our final panelist, a good friend of mine, Josh Miller from the Boston Globe. Tell us a little bit about, most people here probably know what the Globe is, but tell us a little bit more about you.
I'm so happy to be here joining all of you. I'm a political reporter at the Boston Globe. I work out of the Massachusetts State House covering mostly Massachusetts and New England politics. The Boston Globe is New England's largest news organization. We were founded in 1872. And the way we got our information out to our customers for more than a century was to reporters would go out, gather information, they'd write it down, they'd provide context, they'd go to an editor, it'd be fact-checked, go to a copy editor, it would be looked at for grammar and style, and then it would go to a printing press. It would look like something like this after a day of work. It got put on a roller, it got inked, and hundreds of thousands of copies were made. That was the focus for a long time, and over the last 20 years, we've been working to change the focus to make sure that we get our information to consumers in a different way, and I look forward to talking about that more.
Cool. So just to set a little additional context here with my slides, what we talk about at EverTrue all the time is really this idea of how our entire world has changed. I live in a world where I can buy toilet paper on Amazon on my phone right here in this exact moment. We were talking about that with Dave Cancel earlier. And these are some examples that we use a lot is Zillow is a great example. Who here's a Zillow fan? I'm a Zillow junkie. Yeah, such a fun app to use and play with. But what Zillow did for the MLS was take this kind of boring database, really lift it up, add all these different integrations to it, and now you have this really awesome platform to be able to search and filter and buy a house right here, literally, if you wanted to. Transportation, the same thing, with Uber and Lyft. We used to have to go out in the street and hail a cab. Now we could order a taxi right here and take us away in seconds. And then a really fun one, dating, of course. Speed dating over here. I don't know if there's still speed dating events available. Maybe there are. Let me know if there's anyone out there that knows. But now kind of that instant, you can find your soulmate in your pocket right here. Maybe they're in this room. You could find them, open Tinder, and they could be here. So in those kind of themes, that kind of vein, I'll kick it over I'll start with Justin first. Just thinking about why did the alcohol industry need disruption? I can walk to my liquor store or drive, get that. What was the need there to start things off?
Yeah, so we talk about all the time how going to the liquor store isn't broken, right? In the same way that ordering, raising your hand and getting a cab isn't broken. You can do that. It exists. It's not really that complicated. But what folks needed was a way, we believe on Drizly, to actually be able to shop across multiple stores that are all sort of competing for you as a consumer, which is what Drizly is today. We're a platform where these liquor stores, all that have the same product in their store, right? So they all have the same bottle of Tito's, the same Jack Daniels, the same Bud Light, Sam Adams, whatever. But a customer, when you go into a liquor store, you are looking at their selection and you're looking at their price. So what we said is, with technology, we can aggregate the supply from all of these liquor stores across the country and give consumers the power to pick which store they want to order from, shop across price, time, store, et cetera. And Uber did a very similar thing, right? Where they were like, sure, if you want to, take a black car, we'll let you pay a little bit more and take a black car, or you can pay less and take an X, or you can take pool. And they gave consumers options. That's what we set out to do in the alcohol industry.
Okay. So I'm going to take the same question over to Josh. Tell us a little bit about what you've been what is for the Globe, we all need news, we all consume news on a daily basis. how are you starting to think about how you're delivering news in a different way and putting that into action? So it's one thing to start like a whole new thing over here, but how do you take something that kind of already exists and mold it into something new? And I'm probably going to ask you guys a very similar question.
Yeah, I mean, I think the newspaper model that I talked about was supported by a massive amount of advertising 20 years ago. So talk about dating, there was personal ads if people wanted, there was no Tinder, people could look in the Globe, and same with Craigslist, what's now on Craigslist was in the Globe, and also the ability of Macy's and Sears to reach their consumers was pretty limited. They could advertise on TV, which was very expensive, especially in the Boston market, or they could put an insert in the Globe with the cheapest refrigerators and washing machines, and that was a great way to do it. And it supported our journalism for literally since from about 1872 to 2000. And we needed to come up with new ways to bring in revenue to support our journalism, and that's been a process. One thing I've been involved with, when I got there, I pitched a daily email newsletter about aggregating New England political news. And the pushback was that space, that I was going to do a morning one, and that space was sort of already full. People already had enough to do in the morning. They already got a bunch of newsletters. When they got up, they checked their iPhone, go to work. So we ended up doing a afternoon/evening newsletter called Political Happy Hour. And we made it into something of a community, and we grew it from 0 to 40,000 subscribers. And the thing that was added value for readers as we begun shifting away from an advertising model to a subscriber model, so people pay $1 a day to get the Boston Globe digital subscription, what else could we give them, was that we could give them a way to sort of interact and get their news in an interactive way.
Cool. Emily, for you, I mean, it's kind of similar space. You know, sneakers are not necessarily going to change. I guess sneakers have changed a lot, and I was on your website playing around. There's a lot of new technology in sneakers out there. But how are you adapting to that kind of change where you all are? And as your buyer and your market changes, where are you thinking about inserting new technologies or new ideas? And I have some of the examples if you want to show those on from your website, I think up here. Hold on too. That's not you. That's not you either.
So
you can go.
As you said, shoes haven't changed that much over the past couple years, 10, 20 years, but what has changed is how people are purchasing them, where they're finding them, the discovery methodology. And so I'm sure you guys are all aware of the fact that Sports Authority is closed down, and the landscape of distribution has changed just drastically. So what we've done is we've tried to identify where our consumers are spending their time and then go there. So whether that be with a number of our amazing partners, we partnered with CrossFit and Ragnar and Les Mills and UFC, identified really, really engaged niche communities where we say, okay, we know that this is our core consumer and we have to go and we have to provide great product for them. That's one example. And the other is, just on digital platforms across the board, we know that we have to show up in places, again, where they're spending their time. So we can't compete with Amazon, we have to be on Amazon. We can't compete with Facebook and Snapchat and Revolve.com and ASOS, all of these huge e-commerce platforms. We have to be there, and we have to show up in a really unique way. Another good example is actually the team that I'm on is called Digital Brand Commerce Team, and it was recently formed in November of 2016. And it's the merging of our e-commerce and our global digital content team. And so the reasoning behind that creation was that the consumer now expects an elevated experience when they go to shop. And that experience has to be content, and then it has to be phenomenal product. And so all of these changes, whether it be marketing or the partnerships, or just internally, the types of teams that we're building, that's how Reebok is trying to keep up with the incredible fast pace of the world and the industry that we're in right now.
Cool. And then Tina, from your perspective at the Guggenheim, we talked a lot about kind of events being part of that story and thinking about how you all are portraying yourself to the world, but also trying to think about who is that next generation of donor, who's that next person that you want to get through the door. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you all are thinking about that kind of shift in who you're marketing to and how you're marketing it there?
Sure. So I think, the museum landscape is really competitive, especially in New York, where we have a number of other marquee museums with whom we're competing for visitors. So there's the competitive landscape. I think there is the sort of challenge, pressure, opportunity of digital technology. So for instance, in New York, we get about 1 million physical visitors each year, but it's about 5 times that online. So how do you, nothing can replace seeing art in person, but how do you create a rich experience for people who aren't able to visit, or how do you carry the visit past the physical time in the museum. So we, as I said, are unique in that we have this large global footprint, but we also have a very unique relationship to architecture. So this is a good example. How many of you have been to the Guggenheim in New York? Okay, so a lot of you. So you know the space, and we know that visitors come primarily, 75% of visitors come for the physical architecture. They want to see the building, they want to photograph the building. And so we have the opportunity to use the building in a lot of different ways. So this is an example. We hosted an event with Solange that was organized by Red Bull, and artists use our space in all sorts of different ways, but this is an example of how she used it. And events are another way. So this was an event that was really kind of disruptive for us in the sense that we kind of gave control over to the artist.
Yep.
The artist imposed some really strict rules for the audience. One was absolute no use of phones. You had to leave your phones at the door, and that even went for celebrities like Questlove, who came to the event. He had to check his phone, and you had to wear white. So it was really interesting for us because we are one of the most photographed buildings in the world, and yet we had to create this experience for an audience that couldn't even photograph this event in the space. So there are kind of those sorts of one-off really special events that we do. The image you see now is Art After Dark, which is, we do it 3 times a year. And this is an opportunity. It's on a Friday night. Tickets are, $25, which is pretty inexpensive for a night out. And we invite sort of celebrity DJs who kind of bring their own following, in addition to people who are members of the museum or, our kind of usual audience. But it's another way of experiencing the museum, seeing the museum as a social space, which increasingly is something we have to think about, changing visitor expectations. It's not just about coming and seeing an exhibition. People expect a certain kind of experience. They want a place to hang out. They want to be able to have a drink, And so we've been working to create these moments that appeal to different audiences.
That's great. Let's take that theme of experience, because I think that's a great word, and it's so tied to all that happens in the advancement space and alumni relations. Is really, how do you create that experience to keep that donor engaged, to keep that alum coming back to reunion? And so when I think a lot about this disruption and change and how we manage it, I think so much of it is about creating an amazing experience. So how are you guys thinking about that as part of we can use Tina's kind of starts to leverage into that. But I know that, Josh, you've been thinking about this from your role. You start with the political happy hour, the newsletter, but then how do you translate that into an experience that makes me say, I'm going to read this every day, and Josh Miller is my political go-to guy?
I think what we were looking for, the sort of lens we were looking through, was we want people to subscribe to the Boston Globe. It costs $1 a day. We're going to give them access to all this news information that they can get at bostonglobe.com anytime they want, their push alerts, their newsletters that'll come to their inbox. But is there a way we can create more of a community and a sense of loyalty to the brand and a sense of fun? News can be pretty dreary a lot of the time, and I think it's important to create a sense of fun as well. So me and my colleagues created this newsletter called Political Happy Hour, and I read it every day. I wrote it every day for 2 years, and then we thought it might be fun to have a real political happy hour, and we invited several politicians to sit down with us once a month for beers and talking about politics and talking about their lives in front of a live audience of 200 or 300 or 400 people. And that experience, I think we got the most positive feedback for. One, because it made news and they said things they hadn't said before, and that was good from a journalistic standpoint. But also, I like to really focus on asking each of them about something in their personal lives and hopefully chip away a little bit at the talking points and reveal who these people are who wield immense power here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and give everyone in the audience, and also we had all these are streamed live on Facebook Live, give everyone watching online the feeling that they're there too, and they're part of this community as well.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
And that's great. And I know that you have people that read it like me, but then you also have heavy hitter politicians that are seeing your content. And so just even thinking about scaling it for every type of viewer, whether it is the governor who's reading it, which you've had those kind of responses as well, or me. Very different kinds of responses. How do you think about this kind of big wide world out there and knowing that you have these different audiences creating those different experiences? So I don't know if you guys, I'll kick it over to one of you two here, but how are you thinking about at Drizly kind of that experience of ordering something through the app and then getting someone at your door pretty instantly? Like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we hope that getting beer or spirits or wine delivered in under 60 minutes is like an experience in itself. And for those of you, hopefully, I know there's a couple in the audience that have ordered before, you've had that experience. But like in today's age, that's actually not even enough, right? Like you have to go one step beyond that. And so for us, one of the things we've done is for some of our VIP customers last year that sort of order in bulk, if you will, and tend to do it on Friday and Saturday nights. So we know that they're sort of partying with friends or something like that. Maybe they're having a dinner party, whatever it is. We sent them all Bluetooth speakers, right? Like surprise and delight. Not only do we want to contribute to your experience that night, but like here's a gift from us. It's a thank you. Alcohol delivered in 60 minutes. We hope that's an experience enough, but you always have to go one step further, and that was an example of that.
Yeah, that's great. And Emily, I want the same kind of thinking about this experience, but I also want to hit on what you said of you have to meet your buyers and consumers where they already are spending their time. Mm-hmm. So you can't compete with Amazon, you got to be with Amazon. And I think that I see this a lot in the alumni relations world where, it's like, oh, let's build this special thing over here for our alums. And it could be an event, it could be a website, it could be whatever. But if your alums are actually already spending all their time on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or Snapchat or whatever, is that a wasted opportunity? So how are you guys thinking about creating that experience, but also recognizing that your customers are kind of all over the place and they might not be thinking about Reebok, and they probably aren't thinking about Reebok all the time?
Yeah, I think one thing that we try to focus on is not having one-off experiences. So we really want to create an experience, but then have it continue throughout the consumer's journey with Reebok as a brand. And so if you're, for example, we just launched a new Les Mills line with Nina Dobrev, who's one of our new assets in New York, and we had consumers there and they were participating in the event, and they got to touch and feel the product. But beyond that event, there are going to be many different touch points so that consumers will be able to access new product. They'll be able to experience even more Les Mills classes along the way. So I think the first thing is that it can't just be a one-off. I think the second thing is that you want to facilitate the experience. Mm-hmm. And I'm not quite sure how to translate into other industries, but at least within Reebok, and what we try to do is we're going to build the best fitness product for you. The best apparel and the best footwear. But we also don't want that experience to end at purchase or at your door. Like, we want to continue that relationship. So the way that we think about it, at least within the digital team, is how do we facilitate living the lifestyle that we're trying to build and that we stand for? And I think you saw in that video, it was, the love and the life of the company is the employees, and we all believe and we're so passionate about living a healthy and fit lifestyle. And so we don't want our relationship with the consumer to end at that purchase. We want to say, okay, you just bought a pair of our awesome new floats. you know what we're going to do? We're going to make sure that you have a free subscription on Strava Premium. And Strava is a running app, and they're an incredible fitness community. They have about 18 million members. But what we do is we try to introduce fitness experiences so that you can go out and use our product. And I think the last piece is what Josh touched upon, which is a surprise and delight. And so what you really want to do is there's so much going on right now, and like there's just so much noise and so much competition. You got to show up in like a really unique and fun way. And so when there's a really, really bad travel day about a year ago at Logan, tons of flights were delayed, and you know, you're sitting around in the airport and you're just like, I feel gross, and I'm just sitting here. So we sent a bunch of our trainers to Logan to start doing workouts with people. So they just showed up there. I love that. Awesome trainers, and you know, they said, you know what, like let's get up and let's just walk around, or let's go up the stairs, let's do some squats. And I think that's the way that you really get people to believe in your brand and your message.
Yeah, that's great. Tina, how are you all thinking about stewardship? So I come to that Solange event, which sounds amazing, and I'm upset I wasn't there. But then how you've got me hooked. I'm into that. You know, how do you get me to return, and how do you get me to not only return but become a member, or then consider, you know, going higher than that? Like, what's that process of thinking through that?
Yeah, I mean, it's challenging. Our visitorship is largely tourist, so it's about 65% international visitors and 35% domestic. So it is a challenge. I mean, even to get people to come back a second time is difficult, because they may just be passing through New York, and the Guggenheim is on the list of things that they want to see. One of the things that we've done this summer, and actually I think one of the other slides has it.
This one? Summer and
yes.
Yeah.
So this summer, we've been thinking about attendance for some time, and you know, how we could grow it, and in particular how we could appeal to New Yorkers, and you know, how could we get that number of New Yorkers to come up a little bit more, get people to come back, or when someone's new to New York. You know, when you're new to New York, you want to do everything. So you know, how do we get them? And we started to think about. Typically we close at 5:45, and we started to think about, well, wait a minute, New Yorkers can't get here, and maybe they don't want to come on the weekends. So we sort of scanned the competitive landscape, found a night that no one else was open late, which happens to be Tuesdays, and we decided to embark on an 11-week experiment, staying open until 9 p.m. on Tuesdays. We ran are running this advertising campaign, which of course features the building and the experience of the building, which is always the brand promise that we can deliver on. It doesn't matter if you like the exhibition that's on at that time, we can always promise that being in the building is going to be special. And so we are halfway into this experiment. We opened a bar on the Rotunda floor for those evenings, you know, again, appealing to that like social aspect. We started a special program series to run on Tuesday nights called Summer of No, K-N-O-W, which pairs contemporary artists and experts from another field who work on the same kind of, whose work touches on the same issue, but put them in dialogue with one another. And it's been very provocative social issues, as you can imagine, during this time. And what we have found is, first, we've hit our goals, I'm happy to say, which we were worried, you know, it's an experiment, you don't know. Yeah. But we flipped the script on our visitor profile. So now we're 65% local, 35% international for those evenings. So it's a little early to say like how we're going to steward those people forward, but I think what we are trying to do is figure out operationally how we could continue making these late hours available during the week, and how we can scale up that program series that is quite topical. It's a little bit outside the norm of our typical exhibition-specific programming, and we're able to respond in real time to issues that are happening in the moment. So we're a little early, but that's sort of how we hope to take that audience forward.
That's awesome. And this is not for anyone in particular, but whoever kind of has a good answer, but change is obviously really hard for everyone here. The entire audience, I think, would say that. But how have you handled internally maybe facing adversity or people who are challenging some of the ideas that you're trying to go and start a new initiative there? And it might not be as applicable for you, but how do you meet that kind of change? How do you teach people, like, let me just try it, let me just test it, let me get those numbers, and then let me come back to you with some of the results and iterate and try again? Like, how have you been able to do that, or how have you seen examples of that?
Yeah, so I can start. So I've been at Reebok for 2 years, and before that, my position in the team didn't exist. So when I came on board, digital business development, no one really understood what that was or what it meant. And so I spent the first six months, really to a year, getting everyone at the company on board and to understand the value of looking outward in. And so identifying companies, whether it's within our industry or outside of our industry, and saying, look, like there's value there. There are exact consumers, even though we might not have thought of them that way, and we can work with a wide range of companies to help achieve both of our goals. And so the first thing was just kind of convincing people internally to look a little bit more outside of the company and the brand. And the second was to convince people that like taking a risk and moving quickly was okay. And as a big company and being owned by Adidas, we do have that luxury of being able to say, okay, like we can take some risk. But at the same time, in order to prove success, we had to say, we're going to move quickly. We're going to get some data behind whether it did or didn't work on this pilot program or this partnership, and then we're going to move on. And it's okay if it doesn't work out. And I think that was a big thing because, at least in footwear, our production timelines are 18 months out. And so you have this incredibly long planning period, and you're like, okay, well, I'm thinking 2020 or I'm thinking 2025 right now, which is nuts because things happen every single day and they're changing every single day. And so how can you change the mentality internally to think like, yes, we're still thinking long term, but you got to be able to adapt and be flexible short term as well. So I think sometimes it's like those quick wins, piloting things and being able to say, okay, it worked, awesome. It didn't work, let's forget about it and let's just try something new.
Yeah. Any other thoughts? Anyone else?
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I work for, at the core, the Boston Globe is a news organization. So the idea of having a live event with a politician that might not deliver news, I think there was some worry about that because does that dilute the brand in some way? And the moment at which I was able to sort of convince people that it worked really well was an interview with the mayor of Boston, Marty Walsh, early on. And he talks to the press several times a day. He'll go to events all over the city. He'll go to something in Dorchester, and then he'll be in Alston. And in this particular forum, we were just talking about sort of his history. And even though this was 15, 18 months ago, I just asked him, hey, are you running for re-election in 2017? And he was so taken aback by the question. He said, yeah, I am. And that was the first time he had said it, and it was newsworthy, and it was sort of a big deal.
I was there. It was a big deal.
And he looked at me. He said, that's the first time I've said that. I said, I know. That's great. You made news. And then a little bit later in the interview, we were doing a very non-newsworthy part where I had gone back to his high school and gotten a picture of him from when he was 17 and asked him about what he was like in high school. And I said, what's the worst trouble you got in when you were in high school? And he said, I can't tell you. I said, what's the second worst trouble you got in when you were in high school? He said, I can't tell you. I haven't even told my mother. And he started laughing and slapped me on the back. And there was a really human moment there. And the fact that there were both of those in the same interview, I think, was able to sort of push back against what you said were the sort of the worries within the organization that maybe trying out something new might not work out. I'm not sure whether that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah, so as like the small company trying to infiltrate the long-standing processes of big companies, so we work with retailers to bring them online and sell beer, wine, and spirits to consumers online, which they all need to do, and half of them still don't think they need to, which is crazy. Then you have the alcohol brands, which are even bigger, more archaic companies, which are the likes of Anheuser-Busch and Pernod Ricard and Miller Coors and these really big alcohol companies that don't understand who their consumers are today. And so we do everything we can to work with those folks to say, work with us. We will not only make sure that you are in front of the consumers, but you're understanding what your consumers are doing in today's world, which, to sort of apply it to the room, I think, and give a nice plug for EverTrue, like give companies like us a chance to show you what we can do to change your organization and show you something that you may not have realized before. Because in a lot of ways, it'll change your perspective. In giving sort of someone a shot, even if they're a smaller startup, they don't have sort of the 15, 20-year tenure of software companies you may have used in the past. I think we can shock you more than you might realize today. So
there you go.
You're welcome.
Thanks for the plug. Let's take some questions from the audience. I hope that there are some. Anyone have any questions for any of these awesome panelists? Or things that you're thinking about? In the back, I think, CJ.
Hi, Eliza from Tabor Academy. So I just want to say thank you guys, because this is a really diverse group of people on the stage, and I think it's really cool where you're all from and your backgrounds and how they're all different. So I think seeing as technology is evolving and you know, like you've all said, very innovative, what would be the one review that you'd all hope in the future that everyone is saying about your companies?
Wow.
Wow. You know, like at the end of the day, the first time I used Uber, I looked at, you know, whoever I took it with, and I was like, wow. And I hope people, when they get beer, wine, and spirits delivered to their door very quickly at a great price, shopping from a huge selection.
That's your pitch. Now I've memorized it.
Exactly.
I'm going to be selling Drizly next.
Exactly. that it's a wow moment, because, and we've been talking a lot about like how do you hit sort of specific folks, but like the end goal is not just for our like single consumer to say wow, but then to, you know, tell all of their friends about that experience so that they can then get that same wow moment, right? So.
Good answer. I would probably say thank you. Something that we really focus on at Reebok is just being better versions of yourself and consistently trying to improve yourself. And I think that if we can successfully make our consumers better people through our product and through our experiences, then I would hope that they would be able to thank us later on. And I relate that a lot to experiences at Bowdoin, which there are 3 Bowdoin alums up here.
You can tell who was organizing this panel.
But my husband's a Bowdoin alum, and when I think back on that experience, I say thank you. And I think that is something that's really genuine and would be important.
So when Hilla Rebay, who was the first Guggenheim director, and Solomon R. Guggenheim commissioned Frank Lloyd Wright to design the museum, they asked for a temple of spirit. And so, you know, kind of continuing on with this theme of being in our building, I think what we hope is that however you define that temple of spirit, that a visit to the Guggenheim will touch you or transform you in some way. That's the best compliment we could get.
Great.
I think for us, the best review we could get is you telling your spouse or your best friend or your colleague, did you see that really interesting story in the Globe? That would be the highest review, that's interesting enough for you to tell in person to someone else or on Facebook or over the phone, someone who you care about, hey, did you see this thing that I found really interesting?
Must read type of thing, yeah. Other questions? There's one down here. Oh, sorry, you first. My friend Anthony.
I'll make it quick.
That's okay.
So I love the fact that there's the outside perspective that we as participating nonprofits in education are getting from your side. I'd love to hear your take on education. So obviously, you know, you all have participate in your schools or you're involved in some way. Do you think higher ed's doing a good job? And is there anything that stands out to you as a great example for the rest of us, or maybe people in this room that we can look towards?
We've got a BC grad. I know Boston College is in the house. We've got a BC grad here, future donor. And Tina, I don't know where you went.
I went to BU.
And a Boston University grad, also in the house as well too. A future donor as well, if not already a donor. So they'll be hitting you up afterwards.
So I guess in regards to Reebok and the way we think about education is that, so we live the delta, which is actually up on the screen right now, the mental, physical, and social, and it's all connected. And so we think through fitness, you will be better mentally, physically, and socially. And so one thing, at least around education, we're partnered with Box, and they're a nonprofit, and their whole mission is to get people up and moving, because what they see is a direct result with kids in school. And if they're moving more, then they're doing better in school. And so long story short, I think that it's all interconnected. Each industry doesn't necessarily need to be siloed. Like, you don't need to think footwear and then education and then alcohol. They can all be intertwined, because that's how our consumer thinks. They don't think in silos. They think in terms of, oh, Facebook, I just saw an ad for Drizly, Bowden, Reebok, and it's all happening at the same time. And so I think that there are ways to work, obviously better ourselves within our industries, but also think outside of your direct industry and innovate that way. And the second point, I think, which will be interesting, I've been thinking about this a lot, is how businesses and especially brands use influencers. And I think within the education system, especially higher ed, influencers are your alums. And the same way that we have approached influencer marketing, I think there's a huge opportunity to use your alums and use influencers, whether they're stars or they have 50 million followers on Instagram or whatever it might be. Approach alums that way, because that's what people believe. Like, they don't really want to hear from a brand, they want to hear from their friends.
So the Guggenheim is an educational foundation, although it's a museum. So education is critical to our mission. And I think, this period in history in particular has caused us to step back a little and think about what is the role of a museum? What can a museum be? Should the museum be responding in every moment to what's happening around us? Should the museum take a position on everything? And I know that particularly in higher ed, some of these same challenges are being faced. And in our case, we look to our collection, to our artists, to our mission to help us answer that question. And what has sort of emerged over these months is that there is great value in being that temple of spirit, or being a place that allows for context and reflection, that allows people to sort of think beyond what's immediately happening around us. And so I see a lot of parallels between the work that we do and the work that's being done in higher education.
That's great. I'm getting the alert that I need to end our session, but that was awesome. I just want to give a plug for all these guys. So App Store, Drizly, you can search Drizly in the App Store, you get it there. How do we find your shoes? We go to Reebok.com, we go anywhere, we go to Amazon, we go the world. Guggenheim, you guys know how to get there. Josh, how do we enroll in getting Political Happy Hour in our inbox?
You can bostonglobe.com/political happy hour. And if you're not already a subscriber to the Boston Globe, you can start 99 cents for a month, I think, bostonglobe.com.
There we go. There's all the plugs. So great. Thank you guys so much. This was a really great panel. Stay here for 2 seconds. So we are at the end of the day, which is very exciting. I think, Brent, you're going to come on stage here too. Despite doing a few rain dances myself and other folks here doing the rain dance, unfortunately, we cannot have the rooftop event. However, there's an awesome space that we're going to instead. On the 6th floor, the roof is actually right above it. So if you want to bring your raincoat or your umbrella and you want to brave the elements to be able to pop upstairs and see the views or whatever, you're more than welcome to do it. So it's on the 6th floor, starting at 5 o'clock. We have people here that are going to help direct you there, but you go across the parking lot in those elevators in the other side of the Revere. So look for someone in a Raise t-shirt. We'll get you there. I'm sorry that the rain didn't do our plan, but we'll make up for it. for it, and we'll still have a lot of fun. Also wanted to note too, because there's been some concern, the band tonight is not karaoke. So when I said that, it's just EverTrue people like to sing like it is karaoke, but it's not karaoke. So if you hate karaoke, don't let that deter you from coming to Vincent King. He's a band, he'll take requests, he's awesome. Again, bring your friends and family if you are so inclined. We're really excited to hang out with you.
So in the spirit of following this panel, where so much of what they talked about was about the consumer experience, today you are our consumers, and I thought just to wrap, I would ask 3 of you to provide one piece of feedback, ideally what your favorite part of today has been, and if there's one thing you'd like to see us do more of next year, let's hear it. Anything come to mind? Or if you've already found like your one thing you're going to do and you go back on Monday and you're willing to share that, CJ's got the mics. Anybody want to go? One thing you want more of, something you really like today? Go ahead, right here, yeah.
So I have a strategic planning meeting with my team Monday morning at 9. So this is perfect. Because I thought the hour a month plan is so scalable and doable for our school.
Great.
So that's the one thing. And then next year, if you can have more comfortable chairs for us old people, that would be great.
Great. Thank you. I'm with you. Okay. Anybody else have anything else quick? All right, well, we'll definitely be sending surveys and so forth. Want to thank you all for a terrific day, and also a big thank you to our MC, Courtney. We'll see you all on the 6th floor.
See more of me. All right, so upstairs. Thank you guys. This is great. Awesome.